So hello and welcome to our 13th episode of Election Connection, our monthly video series. I am Scott Jarrett.
And I'm Ray Valenzuela. We are your elections directors for Maricopa County. Each month we'll have a new episode of Election Connection,
where you, the viewers, can submit questions to us.
And today's questions in this episode came from our June Just the Facts newsletter.
And you can sign up for our newsletter at justthefacts.vote. And I do think maybe I have the first question, right? Is that right, Ray?
To ask me, but before we start, I want to again repeat that this is our 13th episode. So considering the superstition around the unlucky number 13, I'm going to hope that these are easy questions and all goes well. So, okay, I think I'm ready now.
Well, I'm not going to let the number 13 jinx us. I don't believe in superstitions anyway. So, all right, so I'll start off. So the question was, my voter registration account is marked inactive. What does that mean, and how do I become active?
Once again, a great question, because there's a lot of misnomer around that term, inactive status. The phrase itself, inactive status, is a national voter registration status term used, but it does not refer to voters' voting activity. It seems like, oh, you're not active, you're inactive. Instead, it actually is referring to the voter's address status as being inactive. In other words, you could be a voter that votes every election, but happen to move between a given election. And some voters are only eligible every 2 years, as an example, every federal election having every 2 years. So during that 2-year period, you moved in between one, you neglected to update your voter registration record or your address on file. So how do we know that and what happens? Well, first off, we're required to test your address when you first register to vote. We verify your address, we send you a voter registration card, we send several mailings, and that's how we manage this. And we also do what they call NCOA compare, National Change of Address, through the post office. They have a database that says you fill out a change of address, so we check that to see if you moved. We also send you a 90-day notice mailing if you're an able or active early voting list voter that automatically would be getting a ballot. We send 90 days ahead a mailing, publicity pamphlet mailings. And why am I mentioning mailings? Because as part of the required list maintenance process, and in statute, all official mailings are sent with United States postal endorsement known as return service requested. So a lot of people may be familiar, but what that is basically a special service that the United States Postal uses their national database to compare the address on the mail piece that's being sent. It looks within that database to see, for example, voter A has submitted a change of address on file. Almost everyone remembers to update their address using a change of address when they move, or they remember to update very important items like their utilities, or else they're in the dark. Subscriptions, Netflix, Blockbuster. I say that just to show how old I am. So you do that, but many times, because elections are cycle driven, and again, potentially every 2 years is the only time it applies to you, many people don't always remember, it's not on the forefront to make that update when they move for their voter registration record. So, as noted, we mail several mailings ahead of the election. We receive and send them again with that endorsement. And what that does is two things. It tells the United States Postal Service to, one, not forward that mailing. It's not allowed. For example, I mailed an early ballot, but the post office says they moved from Phoenix to Glendale, or from Phoenix to Bangladesh, whatever it may be. They will not forward that mailing. And two, it also returns that information to us for the voter's address status. So federal law requires this address verification process. It mandates that 2 official election mailings, if they're returned as undeliverable, then that individual will be moved their address to inactive. The 2 mailings is a safety net in case one went and incidentally was marked as you're not there, the other one, a real confirmation with those 2 mailings. So those 2 mailings are returned by the U.S. Post Office indicating it's a no longer valid address. Then we move to inactive, and that is required by state law, ARS 16166. For you legal eagles out there that like to research and see the statute, you can Google ARS 16166, and you'll see verification of registration statute. But basically, an inactive address status are held from being automatically sent official election items such as a ballot. So those ABLE, active early voting list voters, get put on hold status if it comes back saying their address not valid. So the address remains inactive for 2 federal elections or 4 years without being cured or updated, then that voter's record gets canceled. That seems a little bit scary, but 4 years is a long time to say you have not come into the polling place, you have not updated, submitted, or update, then likely you have moved, but just to be certain, you're sitting there in that limbo waiting for that 4-year period to pass, but it adds that safety net that you can come back, and you may just not be actively voting, but your address was incorrectly identified as you were not there at that address. So the easiest way for folks that ask, or that this question was asked, is to verify what address do we have on file for you. How do you do that? Simple, simple, simple. Visit beballotready.vote, and there's a link there with, on top of all of the other information, to check your status. And you'll see there, if it shows inactive, then you'll be able to know there's something going on with the address that also is noted there in your dashboard. You can identify right away, oh, that is an outdated address. I didn't. Also on that same dashboard, just to give a plug for it, such as it's a useful personalized dashboard, you can see your name. Maybe before an election you've happened to get married, or conversely you got divorced, whatever it may be, your name will be shown, what we have on file, your party affiliation. And again, this is a little bit away from the inactive, but it's a great dashboard that, especially coming up in March 2024, the presidential preference election is a party only. You must be registered, recognized. You can go see, am I registered with the Dem, the Rep, the Lib, or the new party called No Labels? Because you need to be registered, recognized party to participate, and maybe you were an independent and you thought you were a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, so on. Also see your ABLE status, active early voting list. See if you're signed up for the subscription service to get your ballot status to know when it was sent and returned. But more importantly on this topic, your voter registration status, where if inactive is shown, then it likely is the address noted in that dashboard is outdated. On that same dashboard, there's a link near that address that shows, and it's titled as Change My Address. If indeed the address displayed is outdated, then you can have a simple way for us to help facilitate you to go to the Register to Vote page, which will give you all of the options on how to submit and update your voter registration record. One of the questions is, how do I cure that if indeed that is there? So submitting that registration update will allow for that. But in addition, there is one more way to do that, and that's to come vote in person. So our check-in stations, also known as site books, have the ability to allow you to do a real-time update. What does that mean? Basically, at any in-person site, early or on election day, those check-in sites double as a voter registration kiosk. So ahead of checking you in, we will be able to real-time securely validate or show you the address we have on file, and you're able to fill in that, obviously after we verify your address or verify your identity and get that updated as well, move you, or what is called restore you back to active as far as an active address. So again, those are the ways how you would cure it. More importantly though, let's say you go check the Be Ballot Ready and your address has not changed, but we show you inactive and that's still your correct address, then we want you to contact us. It's a rare occurrence that we may, but if that happens to show inactive and that is still your valid address, call us at 602-506-1511 or email us at voterinfo@risc.maricopa.gov. That's voterinfo, one word, at risc, RISC.maricopa.gov, G-O-V. So we can look into why that address was set with that status. Again, it's rare, but it could happen. And how it happens sometimes, your son or daughter moves out and they submit a change of address form with the USPS and they accidentally marked whole household, which means instead of individual, and they unintentionally moved your whole family out of that house. Or another, maybe more likely, is our snowbirds, summer and winter home. You mistakenly asked the post office to move you to the alternate home address versus asking for a temporarily away forwarding order. Again, all of those are simple enough to verify at beballotready.vote, and if applicable, you can check with us why your record is moved to inactive, and if incorrectly set as inactive, then we can, again, help you resolve that and get it restored back to active. So definitely reach out to us in those cases, and most importantly, go to beballotready.vote to check your status ahead of any election to make sure we have you correctly. Everything on file is correct. So I think that hopefully answers this very insightful question, and thank you to the individual that submitted this ask.
Well, thank you, Ray. As usual, just a wealth of knowledge, and it's so valuable for our voters to understand that process. And I am glad that you didn't take the opportunity to say that I was an inactive voter, meaning I'm just too sedentary, right, sitting in my seat all day long rather than getting active and doing some exercise. But so thank you, Ray.
Sure. And Scott, the next question is for you. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, ahead of that, I do want to just quickly caveat or segue into this, that it's a question about renovations, and obviously we're following a philosophy of continued improvement, and we're looking for ways to expedite results reporting post-election day. And one of those things under our control is potentially performing some renovations here at McTech facility. So with that, the question is, how exactly do the renovations occurring at Maricopa County Tabulation and Election Center benefit voters? Part one. Part two, will this be accomplished before 2024?
Yeah, so great question. And you may have noticed, so we just actually posted on our social media account earlier this week that we were taking down some of our tabulation equipment and storing it away into our vault. The reason we were doing that is so we can do some of those renovations of our facility here. As Ray was saying, it is to improve. We're always looking to make our processes better. And one of the things that we've identified is that we just need some more functional spaces within and multifunctional spaces within the facility. So one of those is in our ballot tabulation center. We're going to be taking down one of our walls that'll allow us to reconfigure and add more equipment into our tabulation center with the hope to allow us to get through some of those ballots a little bit quicker, especially after Election Day. So in the 2022 general election, we had over 290,000 early ballots that were dropped off on Election Day at our voting locations. Right, so those are ballots that are dropped off inside a green affidavit envelope. They still come back to the elections department very late in that night on Election Day, some of them not even arriving until after midnight. Then we still have to go through and do signature verification on those ballots. We have to put them in front of human boards, those Republicans and Democrats, separating that ballot from the envelope, and then take them into our tabulation center. So all of that can take several days right after an election. So we're expanding our spaces so we can improve how quickly we can get through those ballots. Also, in our early ballot processing rooms, right now, and a lot of people don't know this, but we do a statutory required hand count after every federal or statewide or county election. And that hand count usually starts about 3 days after Election Day. Well, we do the automatic draw the day after Election Day. But usually on that Saturday and Sunday, we'll be having that hand count occur. And right now, for us to be able to facilitate that hand count that's done by the political parties, we actually have to stop our early ballot processing teams so we have the space to conduct that hand count. And this remodel actually will allow us not to have to do that because we'll have these multi-purpose rooms. So it's going to be a huge value add for us, election administrators, but also the voters to help us speed up that process a little more. And yes, the construction should be done before the August primary, the 2024 primary. We'll have most of it done before the March presidential preference election in 2024, but not all of that done. But I do want to caution, it still will take some time because we just have that large amount of ballots, those early ballots being dropped off on Election Day. Those still have to go through a good, robust signature verification process, that early ballot processing. Also, voters have 5 business days to cure their signature, right? So if we question their signatures from one of those ballots that was dropped off, then they would have that opportunity to contact us to let us know they truly did vote that ballot. That's 5 days. So there still is a period of time after Election Day that we'll still be processing ballots.
But we'll be able to have a higher percentage likely earlier on because of the doubling our throughput for EV processing, for not having to shut down because of hand count. So that's where I think we'll benefit the most.
That's correct. So I think that is, I don't have any more questions. Do you have any more questions for me, Ray?
That is only 2 questions, so I think we actually doing pretty good. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And don't forget to submit your question in next month's Just the Facts newsletter, where we'll answer more election questions that matter to you most. And again, repeat that the subscription link to that newsletter can be found at justthefacts.vote. So if you want to submit something for Scott or I to answer. And before we sign off, Scott, I just wanted to say how happy I am that we got through episode 13 with no unlucky incidents and everything went great.
Fantastic.
Oh, Scott?
I can't see you, Ray. Did something happen? Oh, I guess we lost Ray. We must have had a unlucky 13th glitch in our 13th episode. So I'll go ahead and sign off. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.